gives us permission to smell the roses. Tell me something fun about yourself that makes others happy or at least smile. Now, I'm pretty good at that, huh?
Okay.
I was pretty good at that.
You sure are.
So do I sit in the back?
Yeah, sure.
And what do you think is your best quality? How much money does a person spend to have a good life? There's a lot of questions in here that I went over, but I didn't answer any of them. I went up to CSA and picked up this book, the agency on Chapala.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really interesting. People want to leave to their family so they'll know what kind of persons they were.
That I want to take a look at. That seems like
very
really
interesting
useful.
and they have the little notes at the top that's very funny. Okay, so
Okay. So let's start this interview. Could we start with you please stating your name and your age and where you're from?
My name is Cheryl Keys, and I'm 85. I'll be 86 in June. And I was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay.
That's where I was born. And I left there, the war ended in 44.
45.
45. Well, I left there in 44. And I was going to be like 17 or 16 or 17. I left Winston-Salem and I went to Connecticut. I had a reason for going there.
May I ask what that is?
Well, my mother and my aunt were like sisters, and my mother always was in New York from the time, this is the story that was told to me. And I was conceived in New York, and my mother came back to don't put all this in it, but my mother came back to North Carolina.
Anything you say can be edited out too.
Okay. And that's where I was born. And she left me with her sister and went back to New York. So I didn't see her again until I was 13. And I didn't even recognize her when I saw her. So we got off to a not so good start. She didn't hang around long anyway. But my aunt raised me. And she was a very, very sweet person. And if she didn't take care of me, I don't know what would have happened, you know. But she was really busy taking care of other members, kids in the family also. But she always saw that I had a nickel in my jeans, you know. And I knew she loved me. But because the rest of the people, they didn't. Because I was biracial, and I was just left in a black family. And I was just, they were not like abusive to me. They just didn't recognize me. Nobody was interested in this little funny looking child that looked so funny, you know. But so my mother came back to visit, and I was about, oh Lord, a lot of this stuff I blanked out because it was so painful. I don't want to remember all of the loneliness that ensued. But we moved around a lot. We had to move around a lot because the only person who was working was my aunt. And we were always just ahead of the rent collector, you know. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, I through all of that, I survived, I guess, you know. I really don't like to talk about all this stuff.
And if I ask any questions you don't feel comfortable about answering, you do not have to answer. Right. And anything you want edited out can be.
Okay. But anyway, so my aunt, when she passed away in North Carolina, then I went to Connecticut because my mother had moved from New York to Hartford, Connecticut then. So I went and closed up the apartment and went back east, we used to call it. But my mother and I had never bonded, so I could say and she drank, you know, and that was not taboo in what I was raising, but it just was never around. There was nobody around there drinking, and I didn't know that people's personalities could change so quick, you know. So I didn't stay with my mother long as soon as I was getting to be like 17 then, and jobs were plentiful back in Hartford. I didn't have to worry about jobs. I went to night school and got me a job, and from then on it was job, job, job. But I never had anybody in that family to direct me and say, come on and let's get an education and let's do this and I will help you and I will push you. That was never mentioned because it just wasn't, you know, because my aunt was illiterate, but my mother was not illiterate. Anyway, all those things. My story is not different than a lot of other people's stories. That's why I really was not too anxious to talk about it, because I cannot think of any big. I would like to say I did some big things and this is going to look good on the paper, but I never did any bad things, you know, to put on paper. So, but I never had anybody around to say, come and do this and I will help you. And all that stuff stays with you, because if you were in a foster home, you remember the loneliness that you still have, and we just have to find out how to shake hands with it and overcome it, because it's not going to leave, and that's what still got me screwed up, you know. But through it all, here I am at Garden Court at age 85, sitting down talking to you. I never would believe that it would happen. But if you have any questions you want me to ask you, I'll try to answer some.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, where was your father doing all of this?
Oh, my dad, like I told you, he was Irish and he was married in New York. And there was two girls, Susan and Kathleen, were my half-sisters. My mother showed me their pictures. And that's as far as close as getting to know them. I never really knew him or the girls, you know.
You never met them?
I never met them because they were in New York. My mother was in Connecticut at that time. So it really wasn't talked about. When she got real sick, there was a time for me to really ask her a lot of questions, but I didn't think about it at that time, you know, so I don't know what happened, but something happened, that's for sure, because here I am. But I can remember when I was in high school, it came time that you need certain clothes, dresses or something to wear, because I sang in the choir and I was in the glee club and in the plays and all that. And my mother never sent any of those things. And I used to write her, and you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And my aunt was such a beautiful, beautiful person. She would say to me, cross that out. That's still your mother. Cross it out. Cross it out. So I never really had a chance to tell my mother how I really felt about it, because my aunt had told me, sheltered her so much, you know. So I had to carry that stuff, and I never got rid of it. But anyway, I did have one half-brother, but he had a family. He had a family. This
is on your mother's side or your father's side?
On my mother's side. My mother had a husband, and they had a boy, a child. But he never protected me, you know. Just like nobody was around that would protect me. Or I just came up. I was very fortunate because my aunt prayed. She was a praying lady, and she was illiterate, so she couldn't teach me a lot of stuff. She worked every day. She took care of her mother and some of the other kids that came in the family. She took care of them. And I don't fault her for anything but good, you know. But there was something going on there that was protecting me, you know, because I was a sitting duck out there. Anybody could just come along and say, come on, let's do this. And I wouldn't question it because I didn't know any better, you know. I keep making this story go backwards and forwards and backwards. But that's the way it went. So what is...
and your aunt was in North Carolina? Is this what this was?
Yes, she died in North Carolina.
And
my mother didn't even come to the funeral. And I was 14. But the church came in and took over and everything. And later on, when I went to Connecticut, I asked my mother, did you come to the funeral? Because she did take some time out to come when my aunt was sick with this cancer business, you know. And the doctor had told her that she was only going to live 8 months. And my mother came to visit her, and she just hauled off and left one day and went on back to New York. So when my aunt died, she didn't even come back to the funeral, and I was like 13 or 14 then. And she told me no. I wish she had said yes. How could she not do
And
that?
then after your aunt passed away, your mother took over, you were saying?
After I went to my mom, when my aunt died, her sister, then years later I asked her, did you come back to the funeral? And she said no. No reason.
And you said that when your mom was ill, you were able to ask her some questions?
My aunt.
Oh, I see. It was your aunt. As she was passing, you were able to ask more questions about your birth mother.
Yeah, but it never occurred to me to ask my aunt. But I didn't think, no, my aunt didn't tell me. She if she knew a lot of stuff, she wouldn't tell me anyway.
Okay.
Because she was very protective of her sister no matter what she did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the kind of person she was.
Mm-hmm. And your birth mother did share some things towards the end of her life.
No, that what I meant was I wish I had asked her, but I didn't. I let it go, you know. But at one of the times that I don't know how I got the picture of my father and the girls, but apparently when she came to visit us in North Carolina, she must have brought those pictures.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a girl that was living with me named Margaret, and when my aunt died, Margaret was supposed to go to Connecticut with me. I packed up everything and sent it to Margaret's home in Georgia. At the last minute, Margaret decided that she was not going to go with me to Connecticut, and all my stuff had gone to Georgia.
Mm.
So all of my baby pictures and my father's pictures, but when I went to Connecticut, I was so busy trying to find myself and get me a job and get me someplace to stay, I didn't think about, all my background was in Georgia, and I don't know why all those years passed,
Mm-hmm.
and now I can't even think of her last name, you know. But I can see stuff, memory stuff.
And so you made the train trip on your own?
Made the train trip on my own.
What was that like?
Well, because I was so strong and had already looked out for myself, it was, I remember I had on saddle shoes and I was dressed nice, and everybody was saying, well, wear good heavy clothes because it's going to be cold there. And when I got to Connecticut, to my mom's place, she was living in the back of like a storefront, and I had a hard time finding it. So I sat on the curb and I cried. I didn't want to be there, but I was there. The snow was on the ground.
Mm.
And then she lived way in the back someplace. And I couldn't stay with her anyway because things were not right for me there, you know. So I was 17. I could get a job. I was working since I was 13. I mean, like in a laundry, because I had to pay a lady to take care of my aunt, which was dying of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I paid her to come in every day to see after my aunt, and I was working in a laundry at age 13 and 14,
Mm-hmm.
and I paid this lady, you know. So it's such a mirage of things, and nobody wants to hear all this stuff, you know. But somewhere in my mind, I knew that number one, I had to take care of myself. I had to have some education, you know.
So you went to night school?
I went to
Is
night
that
school.
like college at night?
I went to night school to finish high school, and but I looked like everything I would start to do back in those days, I never finished. I couldn't finish anything, but I always had a job, you know.
What kind of jobs did you have?
Well, like I had this job working for United Aircraft, and we call them factories back there. You know, there was all ways to get jobs in a factory, but it seems like to me when I came along to get a job, I would always get a job that like it was just one person job, and it was in an office, or maybe I'm taking care of the tools. People have to come to me for stuff, you know. I always had good jobs, but then it's a long story. It's a very long story. I really don't have a lot of happy. I didn't have a childhood, you know. It was always survival. It's like I was telling this little girl, Michelle, this volunteer here. I didn't, I was not aware of the Martin Luther, all of that stuff. I said to myself, how did all that get past me and I didn't take a part in any of it? But I was so busy trying to survive myself. And I was in Connecticut and all that stuff was going on in Washington. But I feel kind of guilty sometimes because I wasn't in there fighting. You know, where was I? Why was I not aware of it? You know, it's just like I wasn't even around, but I was. But we just didn't talk about it back in Connecticut that much.
Being biracial, did you feel kind of left out from both sides?
Pardon me?
Being biracial growing up in the 30s and 40s, did you kind of feel discriminated against on both sides?
Oh my God, yeah. The school kids would chase me home. I got scars on my knees now, but there was always some kids that would take me home with them, and their parents would accept me. But those kids were kind of fair complected, because if you were a little fair complected, then the black folks didn't like you anyway, and you know the white folks did not accept you, so you were in trouble, you know. So it was just flight. I was just going and trying to keep away from this side and that side.
Trying to find the middle.
I know. And they had names for us and everything. The names were just terrible.
Well, how different was that in North Carolina compared to Connecticut?
In Winston-Salem, North Carolina, is where I got my first job. One of my first jobs. That was running an elevator. There were certain jobs that you could get, and there were certain jobs you cannot get. Like if it was in a restaurant, you could collect the dishes, but you could not wait on the people. For some reason or another, that didn't seem to affect me so much, because that's all I knew. That way back in North Carolina, you know. Worked in a hospital. I just accepted it, but because we lived in our own neighborhood, and nobody bothered us, you know, because we worked in the factory. That's when my aunt worked for 25 years.
During World War II? Also during World War II?
Yeah. I worked in the factory, tobacco factory in Winston-Salem. And I never will forget, they put us black girls over in a clean section of the tobacco factory during the summer years. But when school started back, the white girls would come back to work. Then they would get us and put us back over in the dirty section, because the white girls were back to work. The white girls could sit there and all they had to do was put a label on a can or something, but we had to struggle with the tobacco to make the cigarettes, you know. So, but that didn't seem to affect me too much, because it was just a way of life, you know. And I was so busy trying to thrive until.
Did you have a family later on? Did you have children, or?
Did I have a family?
Yeah.
No, but that's what I'm saying. When my aunt was sick, and
No,
died.
I mean, later on, did you end up getting married, having
Oh,
children?
but did I have kids of my own?
Yeah.
No, I didn't have. I always had miscarriages when I got married, and I had. So there was no children, you know.
But you were married.
Yes, I was married for 17 years, and divorced, so we had no kids.
Was that in Connecticut?
That was in Connecticut, yeah.
How did you get out to Santa Barbara?
Oh my God, I came from LA. Santa Barbara was like, I'm thinking about retirement, and I was living in Oxnard, and a girl friend of mine I met there used to live here, and she had moved away, and she said, I think I want to go back to Santa Barbara, because she had been here and raised her kids, and she and her husband broke up, so she went to Oxnard to live. So she brought me here, right up the street, on Solo.
What job did you retire from?
Pardon?
What job did you retire from?
Oh, okay. All right. In Los Angeles, I went to secretary school, and I got a certificate. I learned how to type somewhere, but I did. So I went to secretary school in L.A., and I got a job in an office, and I also worked in Santa Monica in an office. I worked for American Heart Association in Los Angeles also. So how did I get to Santa Barbara? When I was age 55, I thought, well, things were beginning to change, technology was changing, and I didn't want to be sitting behind a desk and learning all that high-tech stuff. So I decided to take a nursing course. So then I went and took a nursing course. And then I started with the idea that I want to open up an agency to teach the girls and have my own agency. So the company that I was working for, they said, well, the boss said, if you, they stuck with me through that, and I got my certificate, and he says, I will give you a desk and I'll give you a phone, and you can start your business here. But he had a heart attack and he died. But I went and got a job to take care of patients, in their home care. And when I moved to, so my job transferred me to, what's that little town? Camarillo, out of LA to Camarillo. And 7 years later, my little patient died. So then I moved to Oxnard because I just want to get out of Camarillo, So from Oxnard, I worked in Oxnard, and I was continuously working. Wherever I would go, it was work, but it was always something that I wanted to do. Every time I wanted to find a new job, I was co-coordinator and everything, So I must have had 150 jobs along the way, but just like this girlfriend was saying, she says, I got to go to this meeting because we're going to be discussing finances tonight. I said, can I go? Oh, no, Cheryl, you can't go because you got to have at least $200,000. And just conversation we were making, So she said, $200,000. So I said, oh, no. She said, well, I managed to save that much because I was on a job for 30 years. So I said, I laughed. I said, I must have had 30 jobs in 30 years, So anyway, that, I don't know what you're going to be able to get out of this story that's going to help anybody. I really don't,
I mean, it can be edited. I'm not sure. It'll keep asking questions. How did you get to LA?
From
my husband and I, when we decided, no, I didn't get a divorce. No, I didn't get a divorce. I just left him and came to Los Angeles there, and easy jobs, got lots of jobs, and I never had any. I even managed a restaurant for about a Denny's restaurant in LA about 6 years. And that's where I worked for the American Heart Association and in Santa Monica, working in an office. So all of these things is job, working, but that was fine, you know. It always kept me going.
You said you were in Glee Club before. Did you ever continue doing singing stuff?
Pardon?
You said you had been in Glee Club. Did you ever do more singing later on in life? Singing? Did you do singing?
No.
Now, before I remember, you're a woman of faith. It sounds like you. My impression was that you brought your talent for singing to the church.
No, I never had a talent for singing. No.
Okay.
No, I never had a gift or a talent or anything that I could fall back on. You know.
Well, what was it like being in the Glee Club? Tell us about what was going on there. How did you get?
Well, I sang in I sang in the club when I went to high school in North Carolina, but I always felt good. I felt good, you know, because I was tall, and they put me in the back. And I didn't have what you call a great voice, but I had a blending voice. I could follow and blend. And you know, if you put me up in front of a lot of people, I like to talk and I can project. I took some courses in how to do that, you know. I took a course on just about everything you could think of, you know. So, I must say that my growing years were kind of rough, but when I got old enough to look back on it, I can see that it paid off because it prepared me for where I was going, and if I ran into problems, I had the strength enough to solve them because I had had so many setbacks coming up. So that's probably what I would like to pass on to this young generation. Although it's very difficult for them now, very, very difficult. But if there's anything I can do to help them see through some hard times, I'd be happy.
How do you mean difficult?
Try to answer questions. You know, how do I? If somebody came to me, it's like I had no one to go to. Somebody came to me and said, "Miss Keys, Aunt Cheryl, would you help me with this? I'm having a problem with it." I would be so happy to do it, because one of our volunteers right here, she passed by, and I was over there looking at the books, and she came in, so she ventured to tell me that she was writing a thesis about the golden age of swing dancing and all, and she was going to write about Ella Fitzgerald and those. So when she left this library, I saw a book over there, and I chased her down because it had some information about Billie Holiday, and Billie Holiday is one of the persons that she's going to write about. So I chased her down and found her because she had gone out, because I wanted to help her. You know, it's all about helping people, you know. I don't get much chance around here. I would really like to develop something that we could, but the people around in where we live here, they are very independent. And so we're all, you know, around the same age and all.
So you want more like volunteer programs you can do through?
Pardon?
So you're saying you want like more volunteer program or opportunities here?
Here?
Yeah, is that what you were saying?
Yes, this is a great place to be, because there's opportunities. There are people around here that will listen to you if you have something to talk about. I often think the reason I came here is because I have a back problem, and I was living on the second floor up the street here. So I knew I needed to be on a first floor, and I needed to be someplace that's close to a market, or that I didn't have to cook every day. And this place has really been my savior, because I don't know what I would have did, you know, if I didn't if I hadn't found Garden Court in this place because I like it so much, you know. What can I say that, what could I really say? I saw something in this. It said, beautiful young people are accidents of nature, but beautiful old people are works of art. And I bet you wouldn't guess who wrote that. Eleanor Roosevelt. Uh-huh. So I thought that was quite good. But getting old is an art. You have to. I was telling one of the ladies yesterday, we become our own caregivers. And I said, and we have to pay ourselves. So if I see something nice I want to buy, I'll go ahead and buy it because I think I earned it. You know. So, because every day your body is changing and deteriorating, and this day you feel good, you feel great, like you could really jump over the rope, you know, and tomorrow, and then the next day you're despondent. But you have to come to a place in your days. Stop. Just, this is not you, you know. Do not let your body rule you. You rule your body, and you tell your body that you're not gonna take this land down, you know. But it's a struggle, but you can win if you try to. Okay. Anything else?
You mentioned something about the times are different for young people now. And I think you might have had what do you see as the challenges that young people have today that they didn't have before? Do you notice something that's different?
The challenges?
That young people have. Is it easy, in your opinion, for them to get a job? How is it different now?
Well,
comparatively.
Yeah, I see, oh my goodness, the jobs, depending on what kind of jobs the young person need. Okay, now for instance, I would advise, if I had grandkids going to college, I would advise them to try to not just take, just don't decide that you want to be a teacher. Get 2 or 3 things. So you would have a choice.
So have like a background in multiple things.
Yes, because this is a multiple world and it's moving so fast, and you want to be able to catch on and catch that little star and rise above. You know, that is one of the things. I would venture to say, do not become a part of all you read in the newspaper, what's going on television, the terror incident that went off in Boston. Just don't dwell on it and let it become you, you know, because it can destroy you. Keep a good faith, have a good faith and hope. That's not going to be our life, you know, but just be strong about it. It is harder now to be young than it is when we were coming up.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Cause
harder to.
No, why?
Why? Because this is a different world now. Because of the terror, and the job situation, the housing situation. What I see. I really would not want to struggle with that either. So I look at all my stuff, and I was able to handle it, you know. So, but right now, I think I would want my stuff. Because these young people, I really feel sorry for some of them. I really do. But most people I know that has kids, they're not struggling all that much. But I just say, I'm thinking about the families that all those kids need to have an education, and how are they going to get it, you know, with the budget. We're supposed to be in a lot of trouble now with the budget, you know. So, what else you want to know, dear? What?
I have two questions. The first is, there are some people who say they regret more in their life the things that they didn't do, and other people say they regret more in their life the things that they did do. Which, if it's true that people are one or the other, which do you feel? Do you feel, as advice for young people, would you say that it's more important to do the things that you, where does your regret lie? The things that you did do, or the things that you wish you should have done?
As a real old person right now, what upsets me is the things I didn't do.
Didn't do.
Yeah, and I do pass that on to the younger people that I run into that will listen. Be very careful how you treat people now, because when you get your old age and you don't see a lot of future, because they even tell us how much longer we're going to live. Like, I'm 85 now. I'm looking at maybe 15 years, you know. And I don't know why I said that right now, but it's the truth. So in those dark moments, 2 o'clock in the morning, when you look, there is no future much, you know. It's hard. But so that my advice would be, I know what I want to say. Be careful how you live, because when you get older, you live on your memories, you know, and it makes you happy. But if you don't have good memories, you're in trouble. So watch how you treat people, you know. Look for ways to help people. If they ask you, you just can't come up and say, "Can I help you?" If they take the initiative to ask you, and if I don't have the answer, I go someplace and find it. If I can help them. Because not so much that I'm such a good person, but I've learned that in later years, that's going to come back and hit you in the face. And you want to be glad to face it, and you'll feel good about it, you know. A lot of things that went on in my life, I can forgive myself for not getting a better education. When my aunt was sick, and I was just getting interested in boys, and if I didn't have somebody to stay with her that night, I would go anywhere. Anyways, I would go out on a date, and then when I got back home, if she was like asleep, I didn't know if she was going to be alive or not, because her time was close, you know. I think about all that. Why did I do that? And I just beat myself up so much, and that's what I would not tell a young person about my experiences, but I would tell them the result of some of the experiences that went on, you know. So I would have something good to tell them.
Do you mean the result of how it feels to look back, or the result of something that actually occurred in the world?
No, it was just how it feels, when the part that I could have taken in it to make it better. Yeah.
That's important.
Okay. And you said you were a foster kid?
I was.
You was?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel about your life now?
I've been very fortunate to be where I am. The experiences I have make who I am. If I hadn't been through difficult times, I don't think I could appreciate where I am right now.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
I live with a lot of people who have been a lot more privileged in life, and I feel like almost bad for them, because I mean, you can't really appreciate what you have until you haven't had it.
Right.
So I'm pretty glad with where I am, and
I can identify with you.
I mean, I feel like the ability to appreciate what you have is one of the most important skills in life, because I mean, you need to be able to be happy, and that's the whole point of life. And if you've always had, you know, everything handed to you, you can't really appreciate it.
True. And the experience that you have, you grow on that. You can always look back and say, oh, this is why this happened to me, because this is experience. Life is an experience all the while.
And I try not to dwell on the bad things that happened on me, because if it wasn't for those things, I wouldn't be where I am and where I'm going.
That's true. Okay. Okay. That's good.
I have a question about fun. I'm always interested in how people like to have fun. What ways did you like to have fun? Because everybody has their own way. Some people like dancing, some people like partying, some people like traveling. What kind of ways did you like to have fun?
Did I back in those days?
Yeah.
Sure, at different points in your life. We have
Oh.
different phases of the way we like to have fun.
Any hobbies you had, anything like that?
Well, hobbies, we bowl. When I say we, that meant when I was married. My married life was there were times that there was fun there.
How did you all meet?
We met through my girlfriend, boyfriend, and my husband went to art school together. So that's how we, four of us, became friends.
Nice. Was he an artist?
Yes,
Is
he
that-
was an artist,
What do you do for a
but he
living?
never sold any of his work.
What do you do
He
for a
went to
living?
art school, huh?
What do you do for a living?
Bob, when we lived in Connecticut, there was this big hotel, one of the biggest hotels in Connecticut. And what my husband did, he rented the garage from the hotel. And he had a studio in the hotel. But the garage was parking. He leased the hotel a parking facility and paid them by the month, and all the people that parked there paid him. But it was nothing for me to come home any day, and in this little studio type place that he had rigged up, he would be sitting in there painting, sketching somebody, you know. So he was very eccentric. He was born with a crooked hand like this, and he was very eccentric, my husband was. But he was a good provider. He was a good provider.
Why did the marriage, why'd you leave?
He drank, and I couldn't handle it. He was a different person when he drank, and I just got to the place I couldn't handle it anymore. Yeah.
That makes sense. And so during those times with him, you bowled. What other things you do for fun that you
We went
had
to
enjoyed?
dances. We belonged to the same church, and he was on the usher board, and I was the secretary of whatever I was the secretary of at that time, you know. And that's it. There were some good, I could call on some good times in my life.
What kind of dancing did you like to do? What were your...
Well, we would go ballroom dancing mostly to the dances back in my day were given in the hotels. This is in Connecticut now, you know, and we danced there. But I really didn't drop a lot of my shyness until I got way old, because I never thought I was a good dancer, and I would always tremble, like, you know, just kind of shy. But as I got older, like now, I get up there and pretend I can dance, and it feels good, you know.
That's really interesting that you say that your shyness, when did you see that started to drop away and you feel like more comfortable to just do whatever?
I know. I don't know. I don't really know when it started, you know. But I know it's a good 30 years ago, maybe.
I know this is kind of a really random question. I was just curious, but how do you feel like technology has it made your life easier, the changing technology over your lifetime? How has that affected your life?
What type of technology? Anything?
Just advances in anything.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it is, being an older person, well, because I mentioned, I didn't, that's the reason I changed my job class, because I didn't want to get involved in the high technology that much. Although I did work with the computers in my one of my jobs, I worked in the computer room, but it was mostly input and output and stuff like that. Nothing that I was thinking of another job I had. So, but sometimes now I think about how it's going to affect the young people and the jobs. You know, in terms of this robot situation.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes I grieve about that, and how are they going to replace those people that's going to be out of a job?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have to pray about that a lot too. You know.
Do you feel like you saw like where we're at coming, like it was kind of predictable where we are technologically, like the coming of the robots replacing people, things like that? Did you feel
Yeah,
like
I
you
do
saw
worry
that?
about it. I really do.
No, but I mean, do you feel like throughout your life you kind of saw that coming, like that we were moving that direction?
Yeah. Mhm. I see it coming and I read about it. You know, it's in the some of the material that we have in here. You know, the magazines.
Well, if you were to flash forward from being a kid to today and look at all the progress, what's the one thing, in terms of technology, what's the one thing that you think is most amazing? Because so much has happened during your lifetime.
What would I compare it with? That's a hard one. It really is, because it's moving so fast. I can't. I'd have to think about that one.
For me, it's the ATM. I like being able to get my money because I remember when I had to stand in line and I brought my book and they would put the book in the typewriter.
Oh.
And if 6 o'clock on Friday you didn't have money, you're out of luck until Monday.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have any more money. There weren't any computers. They would type those. You give them $50, they'll type in $50 in the typewriter, hand you back your book.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
You just,
real different. Do you use a cell phone now?
yeah.
Do you use the internet?
Well, you know, being an older person, I try to jumpstart ahead of that. I try to keep enough money around so that I don't have to deal with the ATM. I find myself still going inside the bank to get my money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I can't stand there. My eyesight is failing. So that's generation. I'm going backwards instead of forward. You know, but that doesn't. I worry more about the younger generation and how they're going to handle it, and then I hope that they will have some technology to handle the technology. Because it's not all that great. It's great, but it's going to be a different world. I'll be gone.
How do you feel that changes in society, like attitude towards your being biracial and things like that, like have you how do you feel like attitudes towards your being biracial, things like that, have you felt like it's gotten much easier over the last few years?
I really do. Yes, I really do. Because see, when I was coming up, I didn't even use the word biracial. They would call me all kinds of names that were not nice, you know. Mm-hmm. But you don't even hear those terms now, you know.
It's the way most of the world's headed. Most of us are going to be biracial.
Right. If sometimes I look blank because my hearing is.
No,
I
that's no
can't
problem.
hear like
My hearing's not that great either, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I had something profound that I could leave that would be impressive to you, but I can't.
Sometimes the little things are the most profound.
Okay. All right.
You mentioned your aunt was such an inspiration to you, and she was a praying lady, and your faith has been very important. what can you tell us about your faith? How important is faith to you, and what can you tell, say, the younger generation about faith?
I would tell them that faith is important, because if by any chance that that these come about and they don't have faith, they will